if you want to know who people are, need them. These people who you invested everything into will show you in your moment of need who they really are. Because we expect to receive back what we give out, but a lot of times we don't. Why does that happen? Is it true that the moral code says what I give, I should receive? Yeah, it is true. And you should be expecting that. But here's the problem. A lot of times we go through life making deposits in people who do not follow the same moral code. We do not do the work to be sure that the people that we're committing to are also following the same code. So the problem is we make the investments, the right investments, in the wrong spaces, and then we end up with zero. So what could we learn from those situations? Before you marry a person, make sure that this person is following a full moral code. Because if you don't, you're going to make deposits that are going to come back null and void. That's it right there. We expect, first of all, the expectation to be able to receive in return what you give is a righteous expectation, because not because you're doing things just so you can give, but you're participating in the flow of life. So if you're a person that gives, you're loyal, you stand by people regardless to what you may be going through with them, especially your family or your husband or your close friends, and then you find out later on that these people are cheating you out of that investment, that's a problem. And that creates trauma. But a lot of times we create the trauma for ourselves because we are making investments in places where we should be giving freely. And other times we're giving freely in places where we need to recognize that this is an investment. Let me explain. The moral code itself is, I believe, already written in our DNA. People go through life trying to initiate or activate the moral code through different religions, different philosophical strategies that they may take to try to learn and adapt the moral code. But the main place where people learn their moral codes, where they should be learning their moral codes, are at home, right? So even if a person never had a Bible or never, read it or had access to it, they're going to pick up the moral code that they experience with the parent or the people inside. Now, here's where it gets to be a problem. When the person starts to become an adult, now where are they getting their moral code from, right? Because now we're dealing with emotions and we're dealing with free will. Emotions and free will do not honor the moral code. Let's put that out there. They don't. They don't honor the moral code. These are things that we use the moral code to help us steer our emotions or control our emotions, and to help us point our free will in the right direction. Here's an example. If you marry someone who you find out later is a cheater, what was their moral code before you made all these investments? Why is that a big deal? It's a big deal if you made an investment to build a life with the person and you find out later that they are actually doing things outside of your plan. This could have a serious financial, economic, psychological, spiritual, and emotionally disastrous effect. Make sure my mic is on. This will have a disastrous effect on a person who has made an investment. So here's the point of this particular lesson. When we start to feel that our investments are coming back null, of course, depending on how long we made that investment, we need to check. But if we find out that there's nothing that we could do to turn that stock around, we got to let it go and start making better decisions on how we invest our emotional, psychological, financial, where we place these assets, right? Not only do we have to learn from these experiences and do better at where we place our emotional, spiritual, psychological, financial, and our time investments. Not only do we have to be careful about where we put this stock at, we have to understand where does our free giving stop? Because this is how we create emotional trauma, because we set unrealistic expectations. Because first of all, following a moral code is kingdom based. In the Bible, we learn the code. In the book of Proverbs, we learn morality and we can adapt it, right? When we read the book of Proverbs and so many other places in the Bible, it activates something that we already know. And then with our free will, we have to make a determination whether we are going to commit ourselves to follow it. Anyone who is a parent, a mother, understands what that means to follow a moral code, because when you're dealing with your children, you usually follow a moral code and not your emotions or your free will. Like, you might want to do something totally different. You may be pissed off, you may be angry, but you follow the code because this is your child. Same thing with a friendship. Same thing with a relationship. We need to be sure that we're on code when we're dealing with other people, because when we're not, we create emotional trauma to ourselves and make it virtually impossible to exist in a joyous state of mind so that we can continue finding, developing, or living our purpose. I'm saying this today because I hear this so much. I hear people say, well, I was with this person for X, Y, 7, 8, 9 years, and he did this and that. Well, what was the code that this person was following? Because at some point, we have to learn the lesson and take responsibility about where we are investing this stuff. This is not to say that we're always going to be perfect, but when you follow God's code, you actually will do better than you would do with the best stock in the stock market, because then you'll know that you need to be picking, to make your investments, people who operate under that philosophy. If your philosophy is Buddhism, if your philosophy is Christianity, whatever your philosophy is, we need to have one. Everybody needs to have a philosophy, because it's only from that philosophy that we can select the people that we are going to have in our lives to make our lives have value, to keep our lives being valuable. Because the more you spend time around people who are just taking from you, or either you invested in somebody and you find out later that they just take from you and they think of any kind of excuse to not give back or to pull back what they may have been given, people who, these manipulative tactics, the more we expose ourselves to this. And, on this channel, we focus on narcissism, but not only narcissists, there are all type of people with all kind of personality disorders that cause them to be disloyal. And they're not following a moral code, because remember, a moral code, as I was saying earlier, is kingdom based. And most of the people in this society don't operate on a kingdom base. They pretend that they do, but most people operate with this free kind of democratic kind of way of existing. And in this kind of do whatever I want, whenever I want to do, that which is not up against a moral code, people get hurt. Okay? People lose sight of who they are. People lose the self-value that they should be having, right? They should always feel a sense of value, but it can pull away from your value. It could pull away from your identity of how you feel about yourself, to keep subjecting yourself to people, jobs, careers, and situations that take more away from you than it gives. Because if you're investing all of your time at a company and all they do is take, and there's never any reward meaning at least giving back to you on a level that you gave to them, you're going to eventually end up completely drained. You're not going to want to give to anybody else, and then you're not going to be living properly. So we have to always keep this flow going. And yes, we should expect to receive back what we give in this life. But all the time, even in instances where we've been used and manipulated, whether it's relationships, your own children, whatever, you still will get it back. But the traumatic, painful experience is letting you know that there is an issue with how you are making your investments. Follow the moral code. Then make sure the people that you're working for, that the people that, that are in your life are also on that code before you dump too many investments. Or else you need to just be given freely, and only you know how much of that you can do. Surviving the Matrix 4-part workshop is now live. Be sure to click the link so you can get in and watch the replays now. This is one of the most informative. I collected so many pieces of information to bring this lecture, because right now we are existing in a time of not only so much information, but there's an opening of information that a lot of us don't want to see, but we need to see it because we see the direction that the world is going. And we have to make a decision which side we're going to be on, and we have to decide which people we're going to be around. And also, we have to create. And so now that we can, let's make sure that we do. So Surviving the Matrix is not only a lecture for you truthers and for you deep researchers that like to go down the rabbit hole, because I really do go down the rabbit hole in the Surviving the Matrix series. We also talk about solutions. And you know how I am about self-sufficiency and kind of breaking that spiritual knot, that toxic bond between us and the narcissist. Whether the narcissist is a person within your own family, your partner, your adult child, or just in general, the world and the legislations that we live under, trying to start to be free from it. And one of the ways that we become free from that is creating, tapping into our creative self. And that's what A Dream Life has always been about. And every single product and course that I make and that I sell is geared towards empowering the individual and bringing them back to their own creative self and letting them know that your provider is the God Almighty, not these people. So what we can do is learn how to leverage these 6 pieces of software and applications to be able to start our own businesses and to forward our own purpose-filled work. All right, so click the link and I'll see you inside of there. And I'll see you here, I don't know, in a couple of days or a week. Thanks for watching.